I wouldn't myself, but here's some suggestions. Stay tuned. Alright, so let me preface this video by saying you shouldn't wear fragrances to an interview. This is purely a hypothetical, but you know, I saw a study that was done, 2,000 people surveyed, and they were across a couple different cities in America, and I think something like 30% of them find personal scents on other people to be irritating or upsetting. Something like even 10% of people didn't like the smell of like laundry coming out of a, you know, the smell of like scented laundry coming out of a vent, a dryer vent. So the bottom line is, in a room of, you know, 4 people, at least one of them is going to be very put off by any scent that they get from you. So I would not risk it whatsoever. But that being said, let's have a little bit of fun here. Let's play in the space with me. And I've got 8 suggestions here. I actually do think one of them is 100% safe, but let's find out, and we'll go through these each at a time. I am ranking these from the ones I like least to the ones I like most, with the only one that I would actually consider to be safe to be the last one. So I'm going to start off here. I'm going to stop looking at them. Let me grab it. So I'm starting off here with one that I think was discontinued, but I think you could still find it around without too much difficulty. It's one that's not my personal favorite, but it's John Varvatos' Artisan Blue. This one, for me, it's a very green scent, but it is a very soapy scent. So in the world of an interview, you know, a soapy scent is probably one of the only safe things. Like I'm pretending, like, let's pretend we're in a world where people aren't as put off by fragrances. What are kind of the smart, safe choices that you could go with? I think this one is probably among that. It's professional, but it's pretty soapy, a little bit green. So if they catch anything in the air, it just might be kind of like a clean vibe, you know what I mean? That being said, I'm kind of funny, every time I smell this, I'm kind of like, oh, do I like that a little bit more? But then I wear it and I personally am not a fan. The soap is a little bit too strong for me, but I know that this is a really popular one and there is something to it. I just don't like to wear it for that long. But again, if you're just doing an interview, I guess it's 30 minutes, I could grit my teeth and bear through it. But I do think I have a better soapy fragrance later on in the list that I like a lot more. So this one, if you can still find it and get it for a cheap price and you're into green soapy fragrances, Artisan Blue, probably not a bad choice. All right, next up is probably one of the riskier choices. I mean, granted, this is the hypothetical, but this is probably one of the more edge case ones, but I do kind of like it for the interview, and I'll tell you why, and that's Pure XS from Paco Rabanne. This one, to me, is like a woody Dr. Pepper float. It's like creamy vanilla with like pencil shavings, really strong pencil shavings to me in this one. And it's sweet, but it's not like other Paco Rabanne fragrances sweet. This one dials it back a little bit more, and with the kind of the sweet Dr. Peppery float sort of note to it, I think it's really pleasant. In the air, it's soft, it's not screechy, and that's kind of the thing for this one. The reason I think it would work for an interview is because it has kind of those appealing sweeter notes, but it has that woodsy element to it, and it doesn't at all like reach up and rip your nose apart when you smell it. I actually really like this one a lot. I like it regularly for fall and winter, but again, in this hypothetical, in this scenario, I think if people were to catch this, they would just kind of find it to be a vaguely intriguing scent. And that's part of the other thing too here. I don't want anything that's going to be like insane. I don't want anything that's going to stand out massively. I want it to be clean and professional and kind of forget about it. That actually reminds me kind of an analogy that I wanted to draw. I don't know if anyone watching loves going to the theater as much as I do, but one of our local theaters a few years ago got this product in. It's called D-Box, and D-Box is this kind of, I call it a movie overlay. So what it is the seats are special. They're on hydraulics and they vibrate as well. They have transducers in them, and they'll move around. So for instance, I saw Avatar: Way of Water in it, and it acted like another level on top of the 3D. You know, you wear the 3D glasses and that's kind of just an extra level of immersion, and this does the same thing where you're sitting in the chair and it moves around with the stuff on the screen, and it just kind of feels a little bit more immersive, okay? So in the same sense, the scents I'm recommending here, I don't want them to be distracting. I don't want people to be focusing on them. I want them to just maybe catch them and have it be an overlay on top of your amazing interview, right? So that being said, this is kind of doing that, I think, where it is noticeable, but it's not going to be aggressive, in my opinion. It's a really pleasant scent, honestly. So this one, probably not bad, pure excess. All right, next up is one of the best cheapies, in my opinion. It's one of my favorites, and that's Mercedes-Benz for Men, the original. This one, I've talked about it before because I just love it. I think it's one of the fragrances that best understands the assignment, being a car fragrance. It's got this like really fresh air sort of thing. There's like a little bit of a hint of the petroleum. Like you can kind of see that they're going for a little bit of the Fahrenheit thing here, but they dial it back. And to me, this smells like driving with the windows down with the air open. You're getting a bunch of fresh air, and it's just this really pleasant fresh scent. So in that sense, for an interview, this just comes across as like not a like hyper citrusy fresh, but just kind of like a violet leaf fresh, where you're getting those ozonic notes, a little bit of the petroleum, maybe even a little bit of a watery thing going on. Just really clean, invigorating. There's a little bit of like a cut grass sort of smell to it as well. I think there's vetiver in here. So yeah, it's just one of my favorite ones. It's one of the safest fragrances that I have, which is why it's on this list. But just because it's safe doesn't mean it's boring. It's just a really nice, fresh, clean fragrance. So in the context of an interview, it's just gonna be kind of something that exists and bolsters the presentation that you're trying to put across, I hope, which is that you're a clean, fresh person. Mercedes-Benz for Men, one of my favorites. I think you can still get it for like $25 if you find it. It's really good. You should get a bottle. All right, next up, this is another one where I'm kind of like, I was like trying to figure out this one's edge case. This is pretty borderline, I will admit, but I do like it, and I do think that it's got this cool professional thing going on, and that's from Lalique, Ombre Noir. This is one that when I first smelled it, it kind of, I thought it smelled good, but it didn't really do much for me. But after wearing it a few times, I was like, man, okay, it's really growing on me. Again, catching wafts in the air, not when you're digging your nose into it, but when you're just smelling it out and about. It's this really pleasant thing. I think like a way to describe this one, because it's an exclusive, I think, for the Middle East that Lalique makes that you can import now. I think Fragrance Buy and stuff gets it, and Joma Shop has it, but it definitely has more of that kind of DNA influence on it. So for me, when I smell this with the spices in it, it kind of comes across to me like there's an element that's like an Indian take on a cinnamon roll. So there's a little bit of a spiciness, there's a little bit of a sweetness. It doesn't just smell like you're in the middle of a bakery or something like that, but it does have that kind of sweet cinnamon roll thing with a little bit more of like kind of those like Middle Eastern Indian spices. It reminded me when I first smelled it kind of some of the bazaars that I went to when I was in India. So I really enjoy this one now a lot. It kind of feels nostalgic for me. And in the context of an interview, this would be one that's just a little bit appealing, masculine, and spicy. It's really nice in the air. This is one of the more edge case ones because it is more noticeable, but it's one of the ones that I think when they get whiffs of it, they'd be like, oh, ooh, what is that? What is that? What is that? It's kind of like if you smell like a fresh baked cinnamon roll, you're gonna be like, ooh, that smells good, you know? And this, if you only do a couple of sprays, might be kind of an interesting idea, but, you know, again, this is a little bit more of an edge case. And some of these are risky, I think, because the idea at all of wearing anything at an interview is, again, let me reiterate, you really shouldn't, because you're taking a gamble that you don't need to be taking. Just make sure you're clean and you don't smell like a dead animal. That being said, Ombre Noir from Lalique is pretty dang good. This next one is going to be divisive, probably for a different reason. One of my most commented videos, the one that seems to have the longest legs, is the 3-part that I did on the Encre Noir series from Lalique. And so this one I'm going to be talking about is the original Encre Noir. And I think that's one where it's a very divisive fragrance, line especially, and especially this one itself. People tend to either love it or hate it. And I think that's extra pronounced when you're like wearing it on yourself and you're smelling it a lot and things like that. But think of it this way. or like think of it from this perspective. If you catch this in the air, diffused, not as strong, to me this comes across like a really dry, clean, well, sort of clean, kind of dusty woods sort of a thing. But I think the vetiver, for me, I really associate vetiver with cut grass, and so for me that's kind of what I get here, is like a whole bunch of dried cut grass. It is kind of a dark, dry, meaning not sweet fragrance. There's not a lot of sweetness to this, so it doesn't have that thing where you're going to get the appeal of the sweetness, but it is professional to me. It is very clean, not in a soapy way, just in like it doesn't feel like dirty earth to me, but I really like this one a lot. That might just be me projecting my own preferences and personality onto the fragrance, but that being said, I still think it's a really good one. And if you haven't gotten a bottle, it's like $20 for something like this. It's really good. You should check it out. All right, rounding out the top three, one of my favorites. This is the other soapy one to which I referenced early, and it is Lattafa, more specifically Maison Alhambra's clone of Neroli Portofino from Tom Ford, and that is Porto Neroli. Very creatively named, and the bottle is definitely cripping the style. I think they're moving away to do something that's a little bit less legally actionable. This one to me, I love this one. It really is, like, and it's really close to the original. I've put them side by side. I really like them both, but this is soapy, but it's like vacation soapy. So this is gonna be a little bit more summery, springtime feeling. It's gonna be a little bit fresher. It's not gonna be quite as like lathered up bar of soap. I feel like the John Varvatos one is. This one leans into the clean more, it leans into the citruses more. It kind of has almost a sunscreen vibe to it. If you've ever smelled both and you have that association, let me know. But it does kind of come across a little bit like sunscreen to me, but not in like a cheap or a bad way. It smells really good. So this one, I think for the context of an interview, again, the strength of it would be, it has that clean sort of a little bit of a soapy feel, but the citruses kind of bolster it a little bit and give it a little bit of depth and richness that I don't really feel from the John Varvatos, even though they don't smell anything alike. I'm just comparing them because they both kind of have a soapy note to me. Which I think in this case is the Neroli, which is orange blossom. I think that's a pretty common thing that's used for scenting soap, which is why we have the association. But this one to me, again, you're just gonna present something that's clean, fresh, a little bit energetic maybe because it has that association with sunscreen and maybe summer as a result. So that's why I like this one a lot. That being said, I just like to wear this one a lot because it just smells so good. It's just such a pleasant thing to wear, which is also one of the reasons why I think it would be okay in this hypothetical situation. The penultimate fragrance here, one of my favorites in my entire collection, and I'm picking it because of that partially, but that is L'Homme Idéal Extrême from Guerlain. And the reason this one is because it smells like you're in a rich, fancy library wearing a sports coat that has like leather on the shoulder pads, and you have maybe a cigar next to you, or pipe tobacco, actually, I think is a better thing. So this has sweetness, but it's really refined. This is a great example, I think, of French perfumery because it's delicate. It doesn't like reach out and punch you in the face. It just kind of, it exudes its elegance without screaming about it. And as a result, man, it's just like, this is such an eminently wearable fragrance at all times for me. I think if I want to, this is the kind of fragrance that I rise to meet on its level, I feel like this is one where it's not just a dumb reach that you put on or whatever. This is one that you wear and you kind of have to step up your own game to kind of exude the personality that I think goes along with it. Like this is kind of like that meme of the vampires from Underworld where they're standing looking down upon the people. That's what this fragrance is. This I think conveys to me an air of superiority. Just really clean, but it's also extremely likable. I don't get tons of compliments on fragrances, but this is one that I've gotten compliments on this quite a few times out in the public. One time when I was shopping for clothes, the guy who was at the register, he was like, I gotta know, I smell guys wearing fragrances all the time, but nothing like that. So he thought that it was exceptional. Again, this is also probably a little bit better if you're like, depends on your personality, I think. Obviously, someone at a young age could wear something like this, but probably a little bit older will feel a little bit more comfortable wearing something like this. Might suit them a little bit more. I'm a profoundly immature person, so that's what I mean when I say that I have to rise to meet this one, because it feels like a mature fragrance, but still feels like a really good one. The plum that's in there kind of adds a little bit of sweetness, and I really enjoy this one. It is a very appealing fragrance, which in the case of an interview, that's kind of the reason why. It has this refined sense of elegance to it, but it's also still really, really, really appealing to a broad sense, or to a broad market of people, it seems like. So if you've not smelled L'Homme Idéal Extrême from Guerlain, you really, really should. This is, I think, a really special fragrance. Okay, the only fragrance that I would say is actually safe to wear for an interview, maybe some of you see this coming, would be Juliette Has a Gun, Not a Perfume. So this one it's a very simple solution. It's just Cetilox, which is, I believe, part of the ambergris molecule, or it's a synthetic form of part of the ambergris molecule, and it's a very subtle fragrance. That's the reason why I think that this one is the only safe thing that you could wear, and the reason why, to me, this one smells like you just got out of the pool. There's a slightly chlorinated effect to this that just, like, you can barely smell it, but if you smell it, it's just gonna come across as a little bit of like a clean vibe, not a soapy vibe. It's gonna be really subtle, because this is a subtle fragrance. The more you wear it, the more you'll smell it, and the more you can kind of like pick it up and identify it. But there's a good chance you wear this to the interview and they don't realize you have anything on whatsoever, which is why I think it's the only thing that's safe to wear to an interview, because if they do smell it, they'll just go, oh, clean, and not think anything of it. Or I guess the most catastrophic case possible, they might think that you came straight from the pool. But I think that would be such a weird thing to think. I think they'll probably just get the vibe that you're clean. So this is the only one that I still would say, don't wear anything, but if you're going to wear something, this is probably the only safe thing to wear, because it's so imperceivable by so many people. You know, some of the people that I gave a small bottle of this to my mom. I've shown it to other people as well, and that was their thing. They're like, wait, I don't think I smell anything. They had to kind of hang with it for a few, go away, smell it, go away, smell it, until they were kind of like, oh, okay, I'm picking up on it. But it is also one of those things that the more you pick up on it, the more you're kind of like, ooh, I like that vibe. I bought this because I wanted to know if it was the Emperor's new clothes. I find myself wearing it quite a bit, because it is this extremely subtle, nice, pleasant skin scent that just kind of comes across like a fresh skin out of the pool, you know, clean, slightly chlorinated, and something really appealing about that sometimes, you know. You just want something that's nice and easy. So that's why I think this is maybe safe. But again, I've said it several times, but I want to keep reiterating, this is all just a fun thought experiment. This is just yes and. So I am curious, though, of what your suggestions might be. What do you think are the potentially safest things to wear to an interview? Let me know in the comments, and I'll talk to you next week. Bye.